No Murray, no AG, no Beal, no Booker, but no problem for the Denver Nuggets as they get the win in Phoenix. We'll talk Peyton Watson's defense. We'll talk about how Nurk Nurks the most he can Nurk, and we'll get into how the Nuggets may have finally gotten past the hardest part of their schedule. All that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy weekend. Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day, part of your week, part of your weekend. Appreciate you guys being with us and joining us on all platforms. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, my personal favorite, as well as on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. And you can catch a video version of the show. Join us on the live show. Join folks in the chat segment like Grace, who I finally found their Twitter account. So that's great. Tommy is in here hanging out with us. Danny Biggs hanging out with us. Lots of folks that we usually see in here with us on a Saturday morning. It is world's finest. Adam Mares hit up our Locked On Nuggets chat and was like, hey, I can go if anybody's around. And I was like, yes, sir. So Matt Moore joined by Adam Mares. Glad to be with you. We're going to talk about the Nuggets win over the Phoenix Suns on Friday night. An entertaining, interesting game despite so many stars being out. We'll get to all that. Plus, we'll talk about how the schedule maybe finally evening out and lessening up a little bit on the Denver Nuggets. Not immediately, but in a little bit, it's going to get easier. We promise, Nuggets, if you're listening to this. Adam, I know that you gave your takes last night on the DMVR show. I'll tell you that, like, my big takeaway, honestly, from this, I'm going to hit you with a big one here, a bigger take. They can't hang, man. They can't. Like,
I love it. There's 4 players, major key players missing. Doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter. And I'll say this, like, they're going to talk about how, like, well, Booker was out and KD missed all these shots. And for me, it's not about that, man. It's right. About, I watched how Denver put the Suns into rotation on defense over and over and over again. And I watched how the Suns were able to have offensive success versus a team that was, I would not say this was like a hyper active version of the Nuggets in terms of their defensive intensity last night. And that has to do, I think, with like guys being out and it being a road game and etc. But I don't like the matchup for Phoenix. Like, I just don't like the matchup. And especially I don't like the matchup if you're going to get the kind of contributions that you got from the bench and especially Peyton Watson on Friday night.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a hot take, Matt. But I kind of see why you have it. I kind of see why you have it. I'm not saying I can go that far yet. I've done this too many times in a December game where you feel like you know what a team is, and playoffs will teach you a whole multitude of lessons. But if I'm going on face value, Phoenix Suns' issue was not necessarily offense in this game. In the second half, both teams kind of bogged down a little bit more, became a little bit more of a slugfest. But to your point, without Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, 2 guys that really open up the offense, who, by the way, Phoenix doesn't have the horses to go. Like Aaron Gordon, there's some teams you could say, okay, is that a good matchup or not? Aaron Gordon's too big for all of the power forwards they have on the team. That's the type of team that he is going to body inside. So he is very effective against the Phoenix Suns. We obviously know what Jamal Murray brings to the table in opening up the offense. And yet, without those guys, Denver scored easy in the first half of this game. And I just look at it and I go, the Suns have to keep pace with tougher buckets than what Denver gets. Both teams are going to be incredible offenses against each other, but the Phoenix's Suns shots are still jumpers largely and good, impressive dribble drives and this or that, whereas Denver's are like, I don't know, which layup do we want? This guy on the left or this guy on the right?
Well put. And I think a lot of this, I think, just gets into, do you have the ability to make the Nuggets stop the ball? Right. Like, you always talk about the ball is popping. So if the ball is popping is the key, the Nuggets hitting their apex, making the ball sing, as I've kind of started thinking of it. The opposite of that is, like, if you're going to have any chance against them at all, you have to be a team that can at least make them stop on certain sequences. Yeah. Like Miami did that. Minnesota did that. The Lakers, even to a certain degree, like, found some success in at least stopping the ball sometimes in the playoffs, right? And there are teams that they face in the regular season that can accomplish those things. The Suns didn't at all. Like, I'm watching these passes whip around. And I'm like, that's a good look. That's a good look. That's a better look. Oh, they passed up a good look for a better look. the Suns' entire formula is we have the ability to make tough shots. And so I understand that missing two guys that are good at those things, it matters. I'm not saying that the absences of those guys doesn't matter. It's a regular season game. It's always going to be messy. Like these games are just going to be messy. My problem is more in, I always look at like, how do you play? How does your team play? And as a combination of both personnel, scheme execution, basketball IQ, I don't think, at least right now, maybe this changes by the time that we get to April, but right now, I don't have confidence that the Suns can get there.
Yeah.
So Peyton Watson, Durant goes 0 of 10 in the second half. Matt Brooks of Nuggets.com had a great, I love Matt because what Matt does is he takes the conversation points about the Nuggets Twitter is talking about, and he does the work to pull the clips, and like he does all of that work. And I really appreciate that Matt Brooks does that. It's really impressive. And he does it like immediately after the games. You combine that with like what you do on the list, and it's just the Nuggets fans have got such great content. And the best way I can think to describe this is anytime you ask NBA players about guarding great players, I hear the same thing. I've heard it for 15 years. Just trying to make him work, man.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is like, you just don't want it to be easy and comfortable. And the best thing that PWatt did, you live with the results. KD's probably going to make more of those next time. But PWatt did the work. Watson did the work to make KD uncomfortable and make it as tough on him as possible. And he got the results to go his way. That's good process.
I thought he was phenomenal. I mean, honestly, here's what I thought. KD still had a good game because he got to the line 13 times, and I think a lot of that had to do with Peyton Watson's like discipline. He got caught, especially in the fourth quarter. He kept trying to go for spectacular plays when it wasn't needed, contesting a fall-away jumper on the baseline too hard, and not just trying to make it hard, but swiping down to try to get the block. You don't need it. Kevin Durant is a phenomenal player, and he is best when he can get to his spots and get the easy shots. I thought what Peyton Watson did was make all of those shots 5% harder in terms of where do you force him on the court, and then another 5% harder by just getting his length and using his hand and saying, okay, make him take the shot. So did KD miss some shots he could? Yes. But players like KD are most comfortable when they get those margins. They get the 5% better, this or that. Peyton Watson took that away. Is he going to go 0 for 10 or 0 for 11, whatever it was? Probably not. But I don't think it's a surprise that he shot poorly, because I thought he did what he needed to do to put him in that position. The only thing is, Peyton Watson, when I say he was phenomenal, I mean, I should say he was spectacular, because, again, I keep using that word to highlight when a player does something that's, like, impressive. But a spectacular but not solid, and that's the thing, is, like, he still made the mistakes. And it's okay. He needs to go through it. But he can make that so much better. The way that KD shot in this game, Denver should have won by 20. Just cut out the fouling and cut out the gambling, because those things cost you so much more than it feels like. Those things cost you more than it feels like.
I agree. You kind of mentioned the inconsistency there. And like, that's the thing with the bench is like, it's going to be a lot more variable. And I think this is part of where I think fans and us as media as analysts, right? We're media analysts. I think we're less comfortable than say Calvin Booth is, where Calvin Booth's like, yeah, they're going to have nights where they don't look good. They're young. They don't know what they're doing. But they'll have nights and they look really good and they figure it out. And the hope is that by the end of the season, they're more consistent and they're more developed and they're more polished.
I know from talking with Calvin Booth that he views the regular season as like he is not stressed about the regular season. Nuggets are the 1 seed. I think he's like, that's great. That's our goal. Nuggets are the 4 seed. Who cares? Like, I think he honestly genuinely views it. Maybe this is the player in him, but he just views the regular season like a losing streak. He's like, losing streak. Who cares about a losing streak, guys? This is like practice. And maybe he's too far on that. Maybe not. I don't know. But I know from my conversations with him, he certainly feels that way.
By the way, Grace in the chat would like to know if your posters are real of Locked On NBA.
They are. These are real, man. They're framed and everything. And I do have a little rotation of them. So I know somebody was like, is that superimposed? Like, how can
he rotates them. That's how much he cares. He goes through the process of rotating through. He's putting in the extra work on the podcasts, a model for us all. So, last kind of thing here. I thought Christian Braun played a really good game in this one. I've been a little bit more critical, I think, of Christian than other folks around town. And this was, I thought, a really good game for him on both ends. I like the way that he trailed on threes. He had, you kind of see, comparing him and Strother, you see the difference in Christian's defensive floor, and this is something that really caught me last year, where I was like, man, Christian just does not have these possessions where he's lost. Strother had a few on pick and roll situations where I'm like, why are you tagging there? He's already been tagged. You don't need to do that. It's an open 3. Julian, I thought, had a pretty rough defensive game, but I still Julian's like learning, and he'll get better at those. And I like the way that he played with the ball in his hands. I thought both those guys were really good.
On the Christian point, this was a really bad defensive team, and his offense looked a lot more solid. So I think it's good. You need to work on your offense and show good offense when you're playing against a bad defensive team. So he was a little bit more solid in that arena, got to the rim and finished. It's good. That's good stuff.
I do want to make a real quick mention that Justin Holiday was great in this game.
I don't even think you're right. We have to be quick just because of our timing constraint, but he was phenomenal, man. And I think I am all the way in on Holiday.
Yeah.
Because he does so many things well, and he doesn't do anything poorly. And that's such a good recipe. And I am going as far as to say, Matt, that he looks like one of these dudes that is a great player that just needs a team. He's a great team player. And so now that he's on a team system, he looks like he fits right in. So I really like Holiday, so much so that you ask the question, who needs to be cut out of the rotation to make room for everyone? And Holiday seems like the go-to guy just because you have these young guys. But part of me wonders if it really is Zeke, because if you take him out, there's just room for Holiday and Watson and Strother. So I like him that much that to me, it's a real possibility, at least to experiment with here at this point in the season.
I asked Malone about Justin after the game the other night in Denver, and he just said the best thing about him is that I know I can trust him. Like, I know what he's going to do. I know
that's it. Yep.
I know exactly what he's going to give, and the other guys do too. Up next, an old friend had a big night versus the Nuggets, and a golf clap for him. We'll talk about Jusuf Nurkic up next. But first, I want to tell you about Game Time. Game Time is the absolute best way for you to get tickets on the day of events. It's absolutely phenomenal to get tickets pretty much anytime. Christmas is coming up, and I'm going to be using Game Time to get my wife tickets for the Avs. I'm going to take her to an Avs game because she absolutely is wild for the Avalanche. By the way, shout out Locked On Avalanche. Make sure to check out that show as well. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour before the start. It's the place to find those events. You're going to find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, hockey, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section, and Game Time will pick the seats for an average of 18% savings. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. You can check out Locked On NBA on there as well with both Adam and I throughout the week. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel.
We have an important question here, Matt.
What's up?
I'm curious if after Christmas, Justin Holiday will fall off since holiday season will be over.
Oh, no. Well, no, because there's so many holidays. Like Valentine's Day is, I think, technically a holiday. You've got so many. I'm sure Boxing Day.
I don't know when Boxing Day is.
I don't know when
I was going to say, you just know it is a holiday.
It's a holiday,
It is a holiday.
There's a lot of them in the playoffs. I think Memorial Day and Mother's Day, that's a holiday.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about Jusuf Nurkic, who had himself a game last night. Jusuf Nurkic goes 13 of 22 from the field, 2 of 6 from 3. That matches his highest number of field goals and ties his highest number of threes for the season. 31 points, obviously a season high for him. 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block, and a +3 in the loss for Jusuf Nurkic. He did pick up 6 fouls, including the final one that essentially clinched the game for the Denver Nuggets. Your thoughts on Jusuf Nurkic? Because this is a rare case in which I am harder on a Nuggets rival, I think, than you are. What were your thoughts on Nurk last night?
I thought he was great. He did a really good job. I'm not buying it as like this legitimate threat or whatever. I think Denver in the first half is more indicative of what the team will look like when they're at full strength going at Nurkic, which was to say that, He's there to try to be a defensive slower of Jokic, and Denver scored every single possession in the first half. So but you have to hand it to him. In the second half, I don't trust his post game at all.
Nope.
I think it's like sloppy and whatever. And he was kind of on fire attacking Jokic in that third quarter. So he made some big plays. And then at the end of the game, he lost his mind because that's what he does, and gets thrown out of the game. So to me, it was really impressive. Nurkic game, I would say it's probably like a 95th percentile of what I think he's capable of. And if you feel good about that as a Suns fan, okay. But for me, I look at that and I go, I feel great with that matchup.
I think there's a lot kind of here. One, the post shots. He had great touch last night. He's 52nd percentile league wide in post ups. He's fine. Yeah, he's fine. Yeah. He's fine in the post. He's not good. He's not bad. He's just fine.
There's no way Phoenix is going to go to Nurkic in the post in a playoff series.
Right.
Of like, all right, Beal, KD, space the floor, because Denver, first of all, is not going to help anyway.
Yeah.
Like Denver's just going to be like, okay, is he going to go for 40? Like if Nurkic went for 40 points in a playoff game off of post ups, Denver probably won by 20.
Yeah. I'll say this, that he had it going in the third quarter in the post. A lot of the early stuff to get him going was off of KD pick and roll action. And some of that for me was they were undersized without AG. And so I look at that and I go, they probably have better rim protection with the underneath with AG on the court. Like I'm not, they're going to say like, well, we're without Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. Yeah. But again, Bradley Beal and Devin Booker are taking some of the shots away from Nurkic that he hit to keep you in that game.
They had 131 offensive rating in the first half. It's like, this is my thing with Phoenix is there's a limit to how good you can be on offense. Because as much better as those guys are than the other guys they had out there, it's still primarily jump shooting that they're being forced to do. And Booker is going to be a better jump shooter than like say Gordon, but only by margins. Like we're talking, like there's limits to that.
As someone who played post up in organized ball, I have this question for you because I know what the NBA has said, and I have thoughts on like NBA's history of commenting on these issues. But when you were taught things, what is the things that you were taught about with your elbow and swinging that in the post in that situation?
Here's the thing about Nurkic. So here's really how I'd answer that question is Nurkic doesn't do anything the way I was taught. This is why all of his movements are so clunky and awkward. Like he's not a very smooth or fluid basketball player. This is why when he shoots jumpers, like he like flips his arms, it's not like a smooth motion. When he pivots, when he rotates, everything looks unnatural to him. So for me, I imagine that he was feeling the pressure and intensity of the moment, that he was feeling the rivalry with Jokic, which we know he kind of feels a certain kind of way every time he has to go up against him. And then just his general awkwardness that led him to bring the elbows up high on the spin. Now, I know people think about this in terms of like their peewee basketball or high school basketball even, and they think, you don't bring your elbows like this. You kind of do. Jokic, if you notice, always spins with his elbow and then will grab a guy or reach a guy, chicken wing. And when he does it too much, he gets called for a foul. When he does it just a little bit, it's natural. Nurkic brings the elbows up a little bit more, but I don't think he was trying to elbow Jokic in the face. I just think he sucks at moving his body.
Okay. That's a really interesting perspective. I kind of agree with you too. It's also just like it's sloppiness, and they're going to call that almost every time because the NBA, this started with a Dwight Howard incident actually in 2010-ish. Like Dwight was so much bigger than everybody else that Dwight in a playoff game was just clearing a rebound and swung his elbow. And I mean, decked the guy. And like that's happened throughout the course of NBA history, but as we have like social media and stuff gets replayed now, they're a lot more, and we know a lot more about head injuries now, and the NBA is pretty touchy about it, predictably, and so they're always going to be really. And this is why
I think they should be. By the way, like because a dangerous play was on accident doesn't mean it shouldn't be a flagrant. I feel this way about Draymond Green's kicking people in the nuts, where I'm like, I can give a guy a benefit of the doubt if he didn't mean to, but it happens, and unfortunately, we need to like not let that happen. So we can't guess on intention. We just have to be like, no. I mean, you hit a guy in the nuts, hit a guy in the head. I'm
playing this for my children because I am always telling them that saying it was an accident doesn't excuse that you're responsible for the consequences of your movements and decisions. Right. On the other side, the Nuggets schedule might be loosening up like a little bit. We'll talk about that. Plus, we'll get into previewing the Kings game on a back-to-back tonight. All that on the other side here on Locked On Nuggets. Right now, let's talk about FanDuel Sportsbook. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. I like Niners minus 2.5 this weekend. It's a sharp play. It's gone up from 1. They're playing the Eagles, huge game. Basically, a lot of the history says that the Eagles have been riding some unsustainable luck, and the Niners are a much better team. Niners are also on 10 days rest. So I like the Niners a lot, minus 2.5 this weekend. The app's so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, final segment here with Adam Mares on a Saturday. Thanks for joining us, guys. Appreciate you guys being with us and checking us out. We will have a post-game show after the Kings game. It's going to be me and perhaps Swipa as well tonight after the Kings game. And then Sunday night, I'll be on with Adam Mares for World's Finest. By the way, quick shout out. I've got a post up on actionnetwork.com and the Action Network app. It's the first MVP update. I will not discuss it here as to not make Adam Mares drive his forehead into his desk. But safe to say,
that's not a take. Come on, I'm not going to drive my forehead. I just said I disagreed with one player in your 4th tier. That's
no. I didn't even catch that, honestly.
You just mean the MVP conversation.
Just the MVP conversation.
You know what, Matt? Here's the thing, man. I've now accepted that we're just here. This is how it works, and it's a new function of our discourse. And so I'm not going to swim upstream against this.
You can also parlay Yoke with Victor Wembanyama or Chet Holmgren, who I think is going to win Rookie of the Year. And
Chet's great, man. Chet is like, I know people say that almost as if like this is a Melo versus LeBron conversation where it's, people are saying Melo had a close to equal years LeBron, but everybody knew LeBron was going to be better.
Right.
I don't know if it's like that personally. I really like Chet. I just think he's a really good player with a really good mentality. And so I don't think it's crazy to say that he could be as good or better than Victor Wembanyama, even though Wembanyama has higher upside by virtue of his insane body control and height and length.
So the Nuggets finish at 5-7 back-to-back tonight, and the schedule has been brutal and unrelenting, and Malone has complained about it just about every presser, understandably.
He's so good at that. He's
so good about no excuses, but the schedule has been absolutely nightmarish for us. Which is why it was really funny when I asked him about it. He was like, I complain about it, but I also know every coach complains about it. It's just
he is self-aware about these things.
It's just part of the gig. But anyway, so they play the Kings tonight on the back-to-back. I don't know who's going to go tonight. I don't know, why would you not play Murray and Gordon if they could play tonight? Why would you not play them last night and set them here? So I kind of think that they won't play. Seems like a good spot to rest Yoke. He's still got.
You get 4 days off between tonight and the Clippers game, so if those guys are banged up, it does seem like there would be a lot of value in holding them out because then you just get all that extra rest.
Yeah, this one seems like a good rest spot, but we'll see. Yoke sometimes just decides he's going to go, and so they might want to keep the momentum too because they're on this winning streak.
This says here, Ted says Adams all NBA darlings, the Kings. They are, man. I love the Kings. I love
really
the way
fun.
they play.
That IST game. I am unbelievably excited about Kings Pelicans. I am so excited for Kings.
Yeah. It's gonna be a banger.
But the schedule's going to lighten up a little bit. Now, you were telling me before we went on air, we do have this break for the IST. They don't play a number of games, but then once the IST is over, the Nuggets do immediately have a back-to-back. Right. But it does look like overall the Nuggets schedule is going to be entering into a portion of the season where it seems like things are going to be a little bit lighter for them.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, this was a really tough one. I think they're going to end up being the first team to 21 games tonight. So, naturally that means if they're the first to something, that means the schedule in the back is going to be lighter since everybody ends on the same day. So I do think that it lightens up in a meaningful way. And then on top of that, there's been a lot of road games here coming up. They still have 2, 3, 4 out of the next 5 are road games. So it's not like it's over, but I do just see a light at the end of the tunnel for the Nuggets where they're 14-6. Can you get to Yoke missed the holy day? Can you get to that as a top 2 or 3 seed in the West? Because if you do, I love Denver's chances the rest of the year. I just think it's like, hey, no matter what happens, or almost no matter what happens, you're set up to be a top seed in the West and to really get momentum and get going. So I just like where Denver's at.
I think you have to like where Denver's at. I mean, they've been really great. I guess I do have this. I have this question. So they're getting really good minutes out of DJ right now. Is there a shelf life on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they might run into it tonight because the thing that I'll say this, I buy the offensive impact of DeAndre Jordan way more than I expected to. Like he's already outperformed that. And I'm willing to say that I'm optimistic about that piece of this fitting in because it's also made Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, and Christian Brown better offensive players because their jobs now become significantly more contained. Like they know what they're doing. They're not being passed the ball and asked to create something. It's more like you're attacking an unset defense now.
Yeah.
So I buy that. But defensively, Denver has not been challenged in the pick and roll with DeAndre Jordan the way they are capable of being against some teams. Tonight, Malik Monk off the bench. He's a very difficult to guard perimeter guard, pull-up shooter. And DeAndre Jordan is one of the worst players in the NBA at guarding pick and roll against pull-up shooters. So I think they'll be challenged eventually. But at the same time, I'm very intrigued by it as just as an option.
If you're looking at kind of like what, I don't know if the Nuggets are, I do not believe the Nuggets are missing anything. Like they have enough now to win a title. If everybody's healthy, I think they're the title favorites.
They have to grow though. I will give them this. I as much as I agree with you, it's more about I think they will be there. Like right now, if the playoffs started, I do not trust Strawther, Peyton, those guys to play enough minutes.
Well, so this is interesting. Let's say that they're fully healthy. Okay, get the starting five, and you got Reggie. I think is probably proven that.
Yeah, he's proven. Same with Christian.
Holiday for 7 minutes a game, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Here's the only thing I'll say about Holiday: we haven't seen him do it a bunch.
Yeah,
and he's old enough, so no question if he has the stamina, and I assume he does, but I don't know that.
Also, the other thing I would say with Holiday is we've seen him look. This is the same. I have to be consistent here because I've been like, well, yeah, Christian looks good with Jokic. He's playing with Jokic. Holiday's look good with Jokic. Yeah, he's playing with Jokic. Like, can Holiday help out those bench units and make them look a little bit better? Like,
he can't help them. He can't help them, but he can fit into them.
Yeah. And so, but I will say, like, if they started today, I would be like, oh, they got 5, and then and if they were fully healthy, 5, and then Reggie, Christian, Holiday. Yeah, and that's 8. And I'm like, yeah, I can get through with that.
I will say this, though, about Peyton. The way he played defense, again, this is why Peyton represents a higher upside to the Nuggets, I think, even than Holiday. Maybe not necessarily this year, but maybe. I just am so impressed with him defensively that he is a real weapon Denver could use. Just having another guy that is capable of guarding some of the league's best players, albeit in short stints. But you just need bodies to be able to throw at these guys, and he represents another body.
If you need to go smaller, which they won't in most cases, their size is a plus, but if you need to go smaller, he's available. If KCP gets in foul trouble, he's not going to be KCP, but he can fill in ably. And like, these are the type of things that I think about a lot of like, well, what happens if, like, what, when things don't go according to plan, can you adapt to them? And those seem like opportunities for them. I want to ask you, so Ted here says, God, I wish Zeke could break into the playoff rotation. I don't have a good sense for this, even being in the building. Do you feel like Zeke just got the extension?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like there is a frustration or a patience thinning or anything with Zeke as far as like his role on the team?
No, I don't. Again, I don't know that I would have the sense in terms of like how do the players feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think all you can go off of is what Michael Malone is doing with his rotation. And by the way, I'm not bothered by it. The thing about Zeke's contract is, Denver is committed to him in some capacity. So you hope that he can grow. But Denver also has a runway. And I just think that right now, Zeke's in the tough spot of he doesn't necessarily fit with a young group right out of the package with a young group that has a lot of guys that have deficiencies. And it sucks that Zeke might be the casualty of that. You would have guessed that Peyton would be the casualty of that. If this dynamic was in place, you'd be like, okay, well, that's too bad for Peyton. That's too bad for Julian. That's too bad for one of those guys. And it might end up being that those guys all look really good alongside, this dynamic pick and roll with DeAndre Jordan and Reggie Jackson. But I just think that this is going to play out where DeAndre is probably going to be playing more than we expected, but not as much as he has been over the last 3 games. And eventually Zeke's going to get an opportunity, and maybe it's an opportunity with a more confident, relaxed, and capable supporting cast around him. What do you think?
I have a hard time with this because, like, here's a good example of this. JJQQ says Zeke seems to have no talent. He can't even get rebounds. You mentioned on Twitter the other day that you wanted to label whenever a player draws a foul going for an offensive rebound a Nnaji, and like you see
He's
that
got to be leading the league in Najis, man, by far.
and like I mean, and this is like a thing is like he's battling. If you had told me going into the year what he like, okay, what do you think you're gonna, if you had given me where Zeke is in the rotation, which is fringe at this point, and you had said like what has happened with him on the court, I'd be like, I bet that he probably has some good sequences of ball movement and maybe some shooting and the switches are good, but he doesn't play tough enough. And instead it's been the opposite where it's like, no, he's doing all the hustle stuff. He's diving after loose balls and really battling on the inside.
Yeah.
But like he can't he can't help the second unit half court offense function at all.
Yeah.
And that's like it's just weird because, and I will say that I am very hesitant to ever criticize the development staff because they've had hit after hit after hit after hit. But I will say that like they have tried to shape him so much into be tougher, be stronger, be tougher, be stronger, be tougher, be stronger. And they've moved him so far away from like what his identity was as a prospect. And some of that is he also made the decision to change up a shooting motion and hire a coach to rework it. That I feel like they've moved him very far away from maybe what his best fit is, even if he's ably and very, at least effort wise, performing the things that they've asked of him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. The question is like, what do you build that lineup with? If he's out there, what is their identity? I mean, we talked about it defensively, I think. And this is where if I'm painting a picture for how Zeke can actually become an impactful part, right now, the offense is working with Reggie Jackson and DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah.
Defensively, the thing that's tough is it's hard to envision the offense working the same way or to the same degree with Zeke at that spot. It's hard. But I do think in the coming weeks, we're probably going to see the defensive limitations of that combination. And Zeke could make, like, in theory, if you can get that bench unit more confident and relaxed, where guys are making shots and able to do basic things, you can get the offense of the Zeke Nnaji version of the bench elevated to a height we haven't seen, albeit not a good one, but just elevated. And then they can get back to being that switch all 5-person defensive lineup that just doesn't allow anybody to score on them. So my thing is, I think the bench got in a negative feedback loop over the course of that losing streak with Zeke Nnaji, where all of the good parts went away and all of the bad parts became louder and louder and louder. I think this DeAndre thing has allowed for a reset and probably needs a little more time. Honestly, like the reset's not fully happened yet, but I can see a world where that reset happens so that when Zeke comes in, it's a different personality, but still effective.
Maybe we could just merge Zeke and DeAndre together, and then you'll just have Wendell Carter Jr. And like that's just like that's what we'll do. That's gonna do it for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday. Appreciate you guys being with us. My thanks to Adam Mares for popping on with me on a Saturday morning. I'll be with you after the game, after the Kings game. We'll talk about it, win or lose, even if the starters don't play. I'll be on, and Swipa might be joining me. We'll see how that goes. Sunday night, you can catch me and Adam at our usual time around 9:30 Mountain Time for World's Finest. Appreciate you guys being with us. We'll talk to you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.